Who is this going to?
Where's my hitting stick?
Oh.
I mean, it's going to the superintendent. No, I'm just kidding. All right, here's the deal, guys. It's August. The year is 216 BC. And this massive Roman army, led by Paulus and Varro, moves towards Hannibal. And here's the genius. Hannibal has his base camp next to the city of Cannae. There's a river here. There's mountains all along here. This is a pretty flat plain. And for some reason, Hannibal's troops are right here. This is a beautiful area to trap Hannibal if you have a large enough army and you can sweep in from here and block his escape. Where can Hannibal go? I mean, he really can't go anywhere because, here you go, it's going to take him a while to get across the river. There's mountains here. He can't go this way. So what's going to happen is the Romans are going to see this. They're going to realize, oh my goodness, we have the opportunity to trap Hannibal. Paulus is in charge that day. Paulus maneuvers his troops here to block escape of the Carthaginians. Right? Now, you've got 80,000 infantry, over 6,000 cavalry just sitting here, blocking in Hannibal's inferior numbers of about 50,000 total. It's getting late in the day. Paulus is standing here, and what he could do, he could launch the attack. Now, they don't have a lot of time, but he could launch the attack and move in here. But he doesn't trust Hannibal. Paulus is a military genius, and he senses a trap. And he tells Varro, this is a trap, we're not going to attack now, we need more information. So the idea was, maybe tomorrow, use the cavalry to scout around and see what the real deal is. Why would Hannibal stick himself in such a stupid position? Why would he ever allow himself to be trapped? Paulus says he wouldn't. He wouldn't do it. It's not in his nature. And so Paulus doesn't attack. Night comes. Daybreak arrives. Soldiers form up on the battlefield. The Carthaginians form up on the battlefield. Who's in charge? Varro. Now, you know that Varro is very, very interested in a military victory. He knows that this is his way to political and economic power. He's going to win this major battle against Hannibal, and then he is going to be the savior of Rome. So he doesn't listen to Paulus, who is left at camp. He says, no, I'm not going to send out reconnaissance cavalry. I've got him here. I don't want Hannibal to slip through our grasp. And so he forms up for battle. Now, a couple things you have to know. This is August. It's a Mediterranean climate. It's extremely hot. It's extremely dry. The sun rises over in this direction. So the sun is beating into the eyes of the Romans. This is a real issue. The prevailing wind is coming this way. And so what Hannibal tells his soldiers to do is shuffle your feet. Just do this as much as you can while you're standing there. What it does is it kicks up a whole bunch of dust. And the wind does what to it? Blows it into the eyes of the Romans. That's just a jerk move. But it's funny. And so the Romans are sitting there. They've got their shields up. They're like, we don't even know if we're going to battle today, but it's extremely hot. Because they're in full armor. And all this dust is getting in their eyes and making them thirsty. So they have a little trail here that leads to water. So this trail, people are coming back and forth, bringing water to the soldiers. Now, Hannibal's been here. He's got supplies all over here. He's taken care of. His soldiers aren't thirsty. They're ready for battle. These guys are baking in their armor. They're thirsty. They want to fight too, though. They want to defeat Hannibal. And they've got a commander that's really keen on that as well. So what's going to happen is Varro is going to launch the attack. And what he sees is the Carthaginians arrayed in a relatively thin line, but it's kind of bowed forward. All right? What the Romans can't tell is that these groups right here are the really good Carthaginian soldiers. The groups right here are primarily Gauls and Spaniards. All right? And they're relatively light infantry. These guys are Carthaginian infantry. They're much better. On either wing of the Carthaginians, you have cavalry, guys on horses. The Numidians, the greatest cavalry in the world at the time, are there. Then you have Spaniards and Gauls that are basically right here. Roman cavalry is made up exclusively of allies. The Romans really didn't like to use their own guys as cavalry. They used Thracians, they used any number of people other than Romans, just so you know. In this battle they had some northern tribes as well. They didn't have Romans necessarily as cavalry. Very interesting stuff. This group of Roman cavalry is blocking the trail. This group is up here blocking the left wing of the Roman infantry as they're moving forward. Hannibal makes an important move. Anyone know what it is? What does Hannibal do? If you were Hannibal, what would you do? You want to mess with the Romans. Yeah, set me up.
I would attack one side.
Ooh. Why would you attack one side?
Because then you could get away.
All right. If Hannibal wants to escape, he could swing through one side or the other. All right. Interesting. Yeah.
You could sacrifice some men and go one way to lead some of their men that way. And then
Yeah, you could absolutely make a feint. You could like attack here, possibly losing men, and then run away. Absolutely.
I'd let Varro attack the center of the army, and then I'd just have the cavalry and the best soldiers on the sides of where the Romans are attacking, then just have them encircle the Roman army.
Thank you, Doctor. All right. Here's what happens. Here's what happens. The Spaniards and the Gauls charge forward. Guys on horses move quickly. They rush over here. All right? What happens to these Roman allies? They're not as interested in the battle as the Romans are. And they're on horses. So what happens is this. This group sweeps here, hits this cavalry group, hits them so hard that this cavalry group flees the battlefield. Now, what you have is a very interesting situation, because now there is a Roman enemy sitting right there at the flank. That is not a place where you want them. This cavalry runs away. Varro still believes he can win. So he moves his troops forward. He can't lose. He's got numerical superiority, and he believes he has Hannibal trapped. Well, what's going to happen is this. Let's make this occur. All right? As all of these infantry crush into here, what's going to happen to the line of Carthaginian troops and their allies? What's going to happen to this group?
They're going to fall back.
They're going to start to fall back. They're going to be pushed back. And luckily, Hannibal told his troops that this is what was going to happen. He said, don't worry. Fall back, just don't do what? Don't run, don't break. just fall back. So what starts to happen? These weaker troops are going to get pushed back. So you're going to have them here. They're going to try to hold like that, all right? Then what you have is the Romans start pressing into them, all right? The Romans are excited. Let's make a big block, okay. Makes it a lot easier.
They're going to fall back.
The Romans are unbelievably excited about what's happening because they know they're winning. Because these guys are getting pressed back further and further. More and more Romans are moving forward faster and faster. The guys in the back are pressing to get to the front. The guys in the front are having a field day with the stabby. All right?
Wow. So
Well,
enthusiastic.
here's what starts to happen. The Numidians charge this way. What happens to these guys? They leave the battlefield. They're gone. All right? Varro initially moves forward with his group. All right? But take a look. The Numidians are here. All right? Varro
We're always happy in Mr. Sherman.
is here. What does Varro see? He sees that he's been flanked. And what he could do, what he still could do, is he could order his men to retreat. In order. Meaning, back up, but don't die. Don't give up, back up, extricate yourself from the situation, which is very difficult, but Romans were highly trained, they could have done it. Back up, and then hold your own. And then reassess the situation. They could have done that. Varro does something completely different. What does he do?
Keep going forward.
It's like a circus.
Yeah. He flees the battlefield. All right? The Romans still think they're winning. They still think they're winning. So they're pressing forward and pressing forward. Paulus sees what has happened. And he's like, this is uncool.
The Empire.
He, like a boss, enters the battlefield on his horse with his men. Unfortunately, before he can get there, what he's going to do is call them back. He's going to say, hey guys, let's get out of this situation, retreat. Before he can give that order, he catches a sling bullet to the face. A sling bullet, just so you know, it's like a gigantic slingshot with that throws chunks of lead about the size of your fist.
Oh.
All right? Right? Yeah.
Actually, we went on our DC trip last year, and
Grab the rope, please.
they were talking to us about something like that, and they would do it, and they would shoot it out, but in the one that the modern one that they had, they shot it out, but then a bunch of like sprays of lead went out instead of one big ball. Like,
Oh,
there
almost like
one
canister.
No, there's one ball, and it would break up the ball, and it would shoot
Oh,
out
okay.
everyone.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so
So what happens with this big chunk of lead?
Explode.
It hits Paulus in the face. Boom! A gigantic chunk of lead flying that fast is going to incapacitate you, and that's what happened. He falls from his horse, his men surround him, they try to pull him from the battlefield. He's not going to make it. So, these Romans still think they're winning. But guess what?
They're not.
They're not. Here's what happens. Where do these guys go?
Behind. They're trapped.
What do you have?
They're trapped. They have nothing to do.
Yes, you're surrounded. You have a classic envelopment. Now what you have is the Romans in the back are being attacked from behind. They had no clue this was occurring. So they turn around, they're like, oh,
There's
cavalry. That's unpleasant. The guys in the front are still trying to press forward, but now these guys are told to stop. And the really heavy Carthaginian infantry swings to the sides and starts attacking the flanks. This is classic. The Romans can't move.
They're
They can't
trapped.
escape.
There's
There's
mountains.
nowhere to go.
They can climb over the
And the
mountains.
Carthaginians commence
This is scary.
unbelievable slaughter. To give you an idea of how bad this was, some of the Romans in the center, when they were finally hacked to, meaning the enemy, the Carthaginians, had to hack through people just to get to the guys in the middle. The guys in the middle would not raise their swords. They just stood there. They were so shocked that they couldn't raise a weapon to defend themselves. It was so unbelievably nasty that eventually Hannibal himself stopped the slaughter. He said, we can't kill every Roman. If we kill all of them, they'll never surrender. So what he did, which I think I would rather die, he ordered captured Roman soldiers to be hamstrung. Anyone know what being hamstrung is? Do you know what the hamstring is?
Oh.
All right, quick,
Yeah.
point to it on your leg. All right, very good.
Hammy.
Basically, that's your quad. Basically what they did is they took this muscle right there with a sharp sword or a knife
Oh no.
and cut it.
Ooh.
What that's going to do is make it really difficult to march. A soldier that can't march is no longer a soldier. They're not even a pedestrian. Right? So, many of those who survived this battle survived it incapable of ever fighting again. So many, there were senators in this battle. There were so many patricians that Hannibal collected bags upon bags of patricians' golden rings. And he basically mailed it back to Carthage and said, hey, can I have a little bit of money? Look at all the Romans that I've been killing. To give you an idea, the Romans lost 75,000 men in just a few hours. 75,000 men. That's usually like a war costs that many dead. This is a few hours. They also lost 10,000 prisoners. Versus Hannibal lost 5,700 men. That's not a lot of men in comparison. The problem is, even though Hannibal won the Battle of Cannae in a classic envelopment that is still taught today, he couldn't beat the Romans. He couldn't beat the Romans because he couldn't take the city of Rome, and even more importantly, he couldn't defeat the Romans' will to do what?
Defeat.
Yeah, to resist. He couldn't beat the Romans' will to resist. And what did they do? They just made more armies.